welcome to another conversation of What Makes a Leader podcast. And this is where we have conversations about leadership principles. And today I am excited because we have JAMEE EGGERS. I've had the pleasure of working with JAMEE for a few years now. She's held several positions of leadership with the National Pork Board, with the Iowa Pork Producers, and recently she formed a company. She's the founder and president of Rafter J Consulting. Welcome, JAMEE.
Thank you so much, Orlando. It's my pleasure to have this conversation with you today. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent, excellent. So we're talking leadership principles. I consider you a leader. And you didn't just happen to wake up one morning and say, okay, I'm a leader.
Certainly not. Certainly not.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your progression as to where you are today, that you made a decision to form your own company and are out there.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up in West Central Wisconsin. I actually grew up in the city or in town, but I had horses as a hobby. And then we had a dairy farm in the extended family. When I was younger, I participated in 4-H and FFA. So got me a strong kind of background or interest in agriculture and livestock for sure. And I went to Iowa State, where I got a bachelor's degree in animal science. I wanted nothing more than to be a veterinarian and go to vet school, but I am a terrible standardized test taker. So I did not do well. I did not do well on my application to vet school, including some of my grades, and you have to take the graduate record exam to get into veterinary school. And I did terrible on that. So instead, I went to graduate school at the University of Nebraska, where I actually got a master's degree in animal science, which is particularly, I got it in ruminant nutrition. So like feedlot cattle nutrition. And you'll see here how I kind of come full circle working in all animal species. From there, I worked for several different state veterinarians' offices. So I did regulatory health program work in poultry, beef, dairy, sheep and goats, and pet animals at the Nebraska and Colorado state veterinarians' offices. And then I moved back to Iowa about 8 years ago, where to be with who's now my husband. He was my fiance at the time. And I worked at the National Pork Board and Iowa Pork Producers, like you mentioned, before I started my own company this year. And starting my own company was a big decision and a big leap, but I had a lot of really great support from people around me and people in my network. And I took a little leap of faith and tried to build some flexibility into my life and some autonomy, and started this company where I help livestock producers and food production companies. And I help them problem solve fearlessly and build intentional relationships. So my husband and I live on his grandmother's farm. We raise corn, soybeans, and purebred pigs. And then our son, Jackson, is the 5th generation on this farm, and he's almost 2 years old.
Excellent, excellent. Why did you form this company? Do you see a specific need out there to help producers? What was the thinking behind it?
Yeah, well, part of it was a little bit selfish because I was looking to build some autonomy and flexibility into my life. So I was commuting 2 hours a day, 4 days a week into an office, and that, with a toddler and a farm and a family, that was starting to add up as time that didn't feel quite so meaningful. And also, I've done a lot of work with producers and food production companies on a variety of different things. So it seems like they have a long list of projects and things that they need help with, that they know they need to do, but they don't necessarily have the time nor the patience to really do it well. And so that's where I have found kind of my big opportunity, or the biggest need, is helping a lot of these production companies and food companies or livestock producers with these projects that they know they need to do, but they take up some time and they maybe don't have that time to do it. So I fill that time for them.
And you're not only just working in swine, you're also poultry, horses, equine,
Yeah,
beef, dairy, all of this, as you had quite a bit of experience from the health and the regulatory aspects of all these industries, besides the leadership and the intentional relationship building that you talk about.
yeah. So
So,
it's also been really exciting. Kind of one of the other reasons for starting this company was an opportunity to do a little more different work and to branch out again and work in the other species and do work with sheep and goats and poultry and dairy and beef cattle again. I was kind of missing the variety, and it's been nice to kind of add some of that work back in. It's been exciting to make new relationships and connections in dairy and beef and poultry as well.
what kind of challenges do you see for production companies when we're trying to teach our consumer the importance of agriculture, that we're not pig producers, we're not chicken producers, we're actually food producers? What kind of challenges do you see with that?
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for people to share. I think for livestock producers or food producers in general, I think the same thing applies to corn and soybean farmers or wheat farmers or cotton we don't eat, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to share really the just what happens on the farm every day, how the things that we do that we're like part of one of the most noble professions in the world, which is producing food. And the one of the best ways that I think livestock producers or people that are working on farms can do that is in really good, easy conversations with their neighbors, with their friends, with the people they go to church with the people that are also, parents on soccer teams or whatever their children, activities their children are involved in, is just sharing opportunities to just talk in general about what they do on their farm and sharing the stories of how they care for the animals and care for the land and the crops and all of that. I think trying not to have a confrontational, just a general friendly, we all share the same values about, health and wellness and all those things associated with food production.
We have the world to feed, and sometimes people just don't understand that, right? And
Right.
we just get our food from the supermarket and
Right.
we complain when they're out.
Yes.
It's a noble profession for sure. Thank you for doing what you're doing and for promoting agriculture. So when we think of leadership and the things that you have done and continue to do to get where you are and to continue on the path of where you're going, how does goals, daily routines, that kind of, how does that all relate?
Yeah, I am so excited to talk about this because I'm at a time in my life when I'm really trying to figure that out, right? Like I had a very structured routine that had these parameters around it, including that commute, right? So I knew that I had to be somewhere at a certain time, and it took me an hour to get there, right? And um, when you remove that and you start your own company and you start working from home without a commute, it was that became much more unnatural to adjust to than I expected it. And so it's an interesting, this is the perfect time for me to talk through this because I have done so much learning and exploring about
Sure.
that and what that means. So I think that routine, and maybe routine in the idea or the framework of setting the goals or the intentions that you need to achieve each day or each week or each month are really, really important for people. They're important for productivity. I have noticed that they're really important for my toddler because it gives him, consistency of what to expect and he can feel comfortable. But I have also noticed that we can create a lot of stress in our lives if we get so
Mhm.
fixated on what that routine has to be, right? And I think one of the,
Flexibility. You
yes,
got to
I
be
think
flexible. Yes.
exactly. I think that that's one of the biggest adjustments for me has been I had a really structured routine and now I have a routine, but I have to allow it to be a little bit more fluid, to be a little bit more flexible. And instead of focusing on achieving something like I do this thing at a certain time each day, it's more about this week I need to do this list of things and I have to be fluid and flexible about when or how I achieve those things.
So at the end of the week, that big list, it's all checked off and everything was done. And is that the way it works?
No, it is not the way it works at all. In fact, I have like two lists that sort of revolve off of each other.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a big challenge because sometimes when we think about focus and we think about productivity, many times we're copying what we had yesterday to today, and then we'll copy that again to the next day or the following day or the next week. It is a challenge. So you're a wife, a mother,
Yep.
a business owner, a farmer, a friend, likes to ride horses.
Mhm.
How do you manage it all? Or do you?
I don't. I don't. I think that's another thing that's been really interesting in the last 2 months that I've been running my own company to figure out is when I was working and commuting to Des Moines, I had a list of things I wanted to do here in this house and this farm that I just never got done. It was stuff like I wanted to clean the garage and I wanted to sort Jackson's clothes and donate the ones that were too small to Goodwill. And I thought, oh, I get rid of 2 hours a day commuting and I will get all of those things done. And I still haven't done any of them. And so I have been thinking through a lot lately myself too. Like, how did I do it before? How did I manage
Sure.
all of that before? And I think it's not so much about getting time back. It's been more about right sizing my time. And I think that now have the ability to be more flexible about when I do work and when
Mm.
I accomplish those things. And also, I think I have an opportunity to be more intentional in what I'm doing. Like I get to focus a little deeper into one thing instead of sort of switching between a lot of tasks over an hour or whatever. I've also been spending a lot of time trying to figure out during my day, when am I the most creative or when am I the most efficient at like checking off tasks and that kind of thing. So that if if the project I'm working on needs me to be really creative, what time of day should I schedule that in so that it gets the most creative part of me? Or if it's something that's kind of a little bit menial but I need to do it, like when am I the most efficient and effective and focused at that so I can schedule that into the right time of day. And I think as I start to learn and adjust into that type of productivity, I will get to that list of other things because it will free up time for me to do the other things that I was like, oh, I'll have 2 hours a day to do.
It's a long list.
Yeah.
How do you do it all is a big question. And then you come to prioritize.
Yes.
Really, when it comes to what's really important, where should you? I heard you say that focus is very important. That you're trying to be as productive as you can with your time, so that you can get as much productivity of it. How do you prioritize? How do you determine what's really important? Of course, after family and after the things that keep us going. How do you do
Yeah.
that?
I usually have on Sunday nights or Monday mornings, I make a list of the projects that absolutely have to be accomplished, or the work that, if we're focusing on work, that absolutely have to be done. Like they have a deadline this week, or there's a piece of the project that I need to move forward this week, and it can't be any later than that. I set out those things on Sunday night or Monday morning, and then I start to tackle those. And I try not to, but I'm not terribly effective at this. I try not to move on to the list of other things that I could be doing until I have
Sure,
fully accomplished those.
sure. Sort of a weekly review of everything that you didn't do, what do you need to do, prioritize again, and good. Excellent. So I thought you had it all figured out, Jamie. This is a great conversation, right? Because it isn't that you have a set routine and then that's it. It's like, it's not like riding a bicycle, right? Is personal development, professional development important in reaching your goals?
I would say absolutely it is. And I really think that for leaders that are leading a team, that it should be one of the top three things that they focus on for their team members. I think having that growth mindset, an opportunity to challenge yourself or do different work, is absolutely instrumental to expanding someone's worldview. It's important and to their relationships, whether that's in their personal relationships or their work relationships. It helps understand people better. I think if you're challenging yourself and you're really growing with different opportunities, and I really think that it should be a top priority for somebody leading a team to find ways for their teammates to grow and develop within themselves. And if they don't make that a priority, I think you find that people are kind of unwilling to keep working, or they may burn out faster, or they just may find a lower satisfaction in that job, right? So I think, along with getting work done, it's also something that we need to really focus on with people, is opportunities to grow and challenge themselves.
What would you say, Jamie, for someone that is going through a transition, maybe a new opportunity? They just finished college, they're starting a career, or they're a mid-level change, and there's so many things that happen, right? They say every 2 to 4 years there's a major change for all of us, and we got to adjust. So with your routine, how do you get back on
Mm.
in getting that routine to work?
Yeah, that's a tough one because I'm not sure I'm super skilled at that yet either.
Sure.
Um, I think for me, the biggest thing is the prioritization. So really, kind of dialing it back to, what do I know absolutely needs to be done, and then feeling some confidence and some accomplishment in being able to do those things, feeling a little bit more focused. I also, like, if it's things that I'm trying to do regularly, exercise would be a really good one. So exercises makes me a better mom, it makes me a better, healthier person, it makes me a better wife, right? But sometimes it's easy to put that aside. And so if I don't work out well for a week and I try to get back into it, instead of saying I have to get back to working out 5 days a week, I try to do it a little incrementally and be like, this week we're going to work out 2 days. And then next week we're going to build and work out 3 days. So try to do it incrementally and not put the pressure on myself to be 100% back to where it was before there was some sort of disruption in it. I think the other really big thing is rest. We have such a culture of hustle and busy, and we feel guilty sometimes about resting. And I think one of the things that I have discovered for myself to get back to a routine or back to feeling better or getting through a season of transition of any kind is allowing myself to rest.
That's very interesting that you mentioned that, because we have 168 hours per week. And if we divide that into how many hours per day, it's 24 hours, right?
Right.
And old school would tell us, well, you work 8 hours, you rest 8 hours, and then you do whatever you want to do with the other 8 hours. Does that happen that way? And of course not. So
No.
quick question, and I hope I'm not getting too personal. How many hours per day are you sleeping or resting? Is it enough?
Some days it doesn't feel like it, right? And some days I go to
Sure.
bed too late, for sure. I bet I get between 8 and 10. It depends on the
Oh my!
day. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And if you don't do it, it will catch up with you.
Absolutely.
You need the rest. I 100% in agreement with that. In agreement
Yeah.
with that. So, one last question, or two last questions.
Okay.
One is, what would you say to someone that is getting started
Mm.
on the leadership path? What would you recommend to them in order to reach their goals, whatever those may be? What would you say?
I would say be kind to yourself, because this is not going to be a straight linear pattern, right? There will be several valleys in there and things won't go exactly as you've planned out. But that's okay. And sometimes that's really good. So when you feel like you have a setback or it doesn't go the way that you thought it would, give yourself some grace through those, because it's not going to be linear. There's no way to control exactly how it will go. But sometimes that's the best. And so have grace with that. And be kind to yourself through that part of it.
Yeah.
And I would also say build relationships wherever. You never know what will come of interacting with somebody at a certain time. You just never know. So being open to meeting people and interacting with and networking with whomever you can
Sure.
will serve you well in the long run.
Good. One last question. What do you think makes a leader?
I think a leader is someone that that serves others, right? Puts others and their growth and their development before themselves. I think that leaders are listeners, really intentional listeners,
Sure.
and selfless, which kind of goes back to the serving others before themselves. And I think they're kind, open people.
When we think of leadership, it's really about serving and about serving others. And so it's been a pleasure to visit with you. Jamie, if someone wants to get a hold of you, learn more about Rafter J Consulting, we're going to have the information at the end of the podcast. Yep. But how would they get a hold of you?
You can find me several different ways. So my website isn't totally built out and active yet, but you can find me on my email. I am also on LinkedIn, and so is my business. You can find me on there. And the QR code that you're going to share here after our discussion will have a link to all those things, to LinkedIn, my email, my WhatsApp, if you want to connect with me on that one, whatever works for you.
Jamie, thank you very much. Again, Orlando Gill with TCTS Global and Rafter J Consulting, talking about what makes a leader podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.